authority, because it's really a civics lesson here. The acting Attorney General, Yates, refused to honor the president's executive order on those 7 countries and those people coming here. She's gone. The spokesman for the president the other day made it pretty clear that those State Department officials, the career people over there, 900 of them apparently that signed that petition, should basically get out of there if they're not happy with the way things are going. They should get out of there.
He gave a choice. He said they can step up or get out.
In other words, if you don't agree with the president and you work for the United States government, you shouldn't be there.
Well, Chris, what we're saying...
No, really, that's what he's saying.
Well, I believe what our press secretary meant by that is what he said, which is, every president has a right, really has the right to surround himself with a team that's going to work with him and not against him. And there's been a lot of grandstanding this last week, as you know.
Yeah, but civil servants swear their oath to the Constitution. They take a job for life in these career positions.
And then sign a petition saying that they're not going to discharge. Their oath was that they would discharge their duties.
They didn't say they would discharge. They said he disagreed with a major issue.
Okay, they disagreed with him on a major issue. And they disagree with him on a major issue. And what does that mean? Are they effective in their post? In other words, what Sean Spicer said was, should step up or step aside. I mean, it's a choice some of them will have to make. We'd appreciate the lack of leaking. Our new Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, who's an amazing choice. He'll go down as one of the best Secretary of States, I promise you. He just said today, his first day on the job at State, he said, brace for big changes, and he means it. This is the new administration, and everybody knew what they were getting.
Sure, I know that.
With President Trump.
Kellyanne, we've had people, you might say progressives, liberals, whatever. You can say people who didn't like Richard Nixon served under him for 6 years or so, his whole presidency. You had people served under Reagan who didn't agree with him.
Did they sign petitions?
Well, they apparently did, because the petition began back in the Vietnam War.
Do you think if you survey the protesters, they know what they're protesting?
Okay, let's go to the principle of presidential authority. Does a president have a right to insist that people who work for the federal government agree with him?
Does he have the right to insist?
Insist that they agree with him.
Well, he has a right to form a team and a government.
No, I'm talking about the public service, the civil service.
But agree with him on what? In other words, it's not agree with him. You make it sound like, do they agree with him personally? He's the president, and he is enacting policy on behalf of a nation. And in this case, he is calling for extreme vetting from 7 countries that President Obama first identified. Right. All he did was take his lead. He didn't even add to the list. Yeah. It's the 7 countries that were previously identified by President Obama as being high risk, as being states that either harbor, train, or export terrorism. These are nations very narrowly prescribed and also temporary.
Sure.
I bet there was very little coverage. I bet it's brand new information to people that President Obama had a 6-month ban on the Iraqi refugee program after 2 Iraqis came here to this country, were radicalized, and they were the masterminds behind the Bowling Green massacre. I mean, most people don't know that because it didn't get covered.
Let's talk about the major strategic goal this administration oversees, and here as well, to eradicate radical Islamic terrorism. And how does that fit with the executive order on those 7 countries? How does the getting rid of, eradicating, that's the term the president uses, radical Islamic terrorism, how do we achieve that goal by restricting immigration from those 7 countries?
Well, you partly achieve it, but that goal is much broader than any one executive order. This was a centerpiece of...
Well, how do they connect?
The candidacy will be a centerpiece of his presidency. They connect in this way. You can't just look at what's happened in Orlando, in San Bernardino, in Nice, Brussels, Paris, Germany, London. You can't look at that and avert your gaze, and Turkey, and look the other way and say, oh, you know, things happen. This man ran on a stronger and safer United States of America, and more important, just as importantly, Chris, protecting America, Americans, her interests and her allies here and abroad. What does that mean for ISIS? He has minced no words that he wants to eradicate. His word as recently as last week. He wants to eradicate radical Islamic terrorism. You know what? Most Americans and many people abroad agree with him, because if we're just going to look the other way, and we had Hillary Clinton, the Democratic Party nominee, at her convention in our Philadelphia, refer to them not as radical Islamic terrorism, but as our, quote, determined enemies. I saw that in her prepared remarks. I thought, wow, we're really going to win this thing. Yeah. You can't defeat something unless you're willing to call it what it is, name it what it is. And I remember President Obama very cavalierly saying at some point, well, who would it help? Or maybe some of his supporters said, who would it help? You know, what does it help calling it that? Well, it helps a great deal because when you name it, then people realize what you're actually fighting against. Terrorism today is never like it was when you and I were growing up. It is cyber warfare. It is they radicalize people online. There was no online when we were kids, and they radicalize people online now. And what happens is what this extreme vetting does is the big thing it tries to prevent is people come here and then they go back and they're trained in these countries. My whole point, you're training, harboring, and then you're exporting terrorists back here. That's what happened. That's what happens, and that's what happened in Europe. That's what could happen here, has happened here, frankly, and that's what should not happen again. If you have a commander-in-chief and a president who's willing to stem that, let alone eradicate it, everybody should welcome that.
So this is about keeping radical Islamist terrorists out of the country.
Yes, and well, off the globe. I mean, they seem emboldened, and you know, look what they did in Turkey on Christmas Eve.
We're getting a signal here. I got one question.
At today's press conference, Sean Spicer conflated the unsubstantiated claims that BuzzFeed released with what CNN reported, and I was surprised by that because he said BuzzFeed and CNN made the decision to run with the unsubstantiated claim. That's simply not true. I mean, what CNN said is that CNN is not reporting on details of that memo as it has not independently corroborated the specific allegations. Do you acknowledge here and now that CNN did not release the 35-page unsubstantiated claims against Donald Trump and it was misleading and untrue for Sean Spicer to suggest otherwise?
No, our incoming press secretary, Sean Spicer, was exactly right, as was the president-elect Anderson. CNN went first yesterday and BuzzFeed went second.
We didn't report
CNN
what BuzzFeed reported.
I didn't say that you did, but you linked
Sean
to it
Spicer
in
said
your
we
story.
did.
Let me just tell you, Anderson, let's back up. I know CNN must be feeling the heat today of having a headline yesterday at around 6:30 p.m. that said, quote, Intel chiefs presented Trump with information that Russia could compromise. Russia had information to compromise him. That is just false. And as you saw through NBC News reports today, tweets from people at Politico, no friend of Donald Trump, and a lot of, frankly, a lot of outlets, print and electronic outlets, so reluctant and hesitant to go forward with anything close to what CNN or BuzzFeed did.
Well,
I know you want to
again,
distance yourself from BuzzFeed, but you went first.
But
no,
you're
I'm
conflating
conflating nothing.
what
I just
BuzzFeed
know what CNN did. Anderson, you know, you're a responsible journalist. You've gone all over the world. You're widely respected.
What's inaccurate about what
me.
CNN reported?
Oh my goodness, the whole headline. You go read the entire story, 4 bylines, and a story that's just not true, that the president-elect was presented with this information, that it was appended in a 2-page document to the briefing. NBC has said it was not. Other people have said it was not.
NBC has said NBC has said it was not verbally presented, and CNN never said it was verbally presented. In fact, we said CNN in their reporting, based on multiple sources, said we don't know if it was verbally presented. What CNN said was, and I quote, classified documents presented last week to President Obama and President-elect Trump included allegations that Russian operatives claimed to have compromising personal and financial information about Mr. Trump. Multiple U.S. officials with direct knowledge of the briefings tell CNN.
Anderson, your sources are not correct. And the fact is
so
that
you're saying
in that intelligence,
you're saying in that intelligence briefing there was no information in any of the documents that's of that 2-page summary.
So 2 things on that. Number 1, we don't discuss the classified information that is presented in intelligence briefings.
Well, you just said it wasn't
true. That's why they're closed door. Excuse me, but Anderson, if you want me to talk, I know CNN is feeling the heat today. But I was gracious enough to come on and discuss it. We feel it. What heat do we feel? That you've got this raw information, this complete ridiculous fake news. Actually, it's just fake. It's not
actually
even
been
news.
backed up by not only multiple
words.
sources, but
No,
other news agencies, New York Times,
okay,
Washington.
well, you're just, I'm surprised you just want to argue with me. It has not been backed up by credible news sources, and you know as well as I do that these rumors were running around for months. Every news outlet was chasing these rumors
we're
for
not
months and
we're not reporting
decided
rumors.
not to. Anderson, because CNN went first and had this breathless report, you know, everybody said it was a bombshell, earth-shattering report last night.
We didn't say it was a bombshell.
BuzzFeed then went ahead. But yes, he did. Yes, he did. It says right here, Intel chiefs presented Trump with claims of Russian effort to compromise him.
Where's the word bombshell?
That's not true. Your headline is wrong. Well, then Seth Meyer said that he confronted me on the bombshell. None of it is true.
Well,
and I think
I'm sorry
a
what
day
Seth
later,
Meyer said
can you
to
tell me that you would? Can you tell me would you run the same story today, knowing what you know, everything that's happened? Because
absolutely.
You would, wow, because the executive editor of the New York Times said they saw this information and
They
decided
were talking about the
couldn't
BuzzFeed
corroborate,
story.
they couldn't verify it.
They're talking about the BuzzFeed story.
And so are you. You linked to the.
No,
then why do you link to the BuzzFeed story in your report?
We said we cannot corroborate. We're not reporting what they
Why even
released.
link
In
it? If
fact,
you can't
Jake Tapper
corroborate
has
it,
been
why
very
would you link it?
critical of what BuzzFeed has done.
If you couldn't corroborate it, why would you even link to it? Why are you linking to fake news?
We did
why
not
are you
link
linking
to
to
it.
stuff? You know the Michael Cohen who is mentioned in that report is not the Michael Cohen who works at the Trump organization. This Michael Cohen,
never said
Michael
he
D.
was.
Cohen, has never been. You're linking to the BuzzFeed report.
We're not linking to the BuzzFeed report.
It's mentioned in here. I'm looking at the updated CNN report. I read it right before we came on air, and absolutely, you know, people are going to. Why did you run a story? Why run a story based on anonymous sourcing that now has been rebutted about a 2-page appendix that?
So you're saying there was no.
True.
You're saying that there was no 2-page summary that was included in briefing materials.
The president-elect was asked that question today. You should refer to his answer, but I will tell you.
Well, no, you can answer
lower
it.
level.
He said.
No, I wasn't in the briefing.
Okay, so you can't say whether or not. You're saying it's not true, but you're saying also
What
you
did
can't
the president-elect say today when he was asked?
I don't know. You tell me.
Well, then you didn't pay attention to the attention to the press conference. You're relying on CNN, on verified sources.
Actually, I just watched the press conference. I just don't want to misquote the president-elect. I assume you know what the president-elect said today.
I sure do. And
he said he doesn't want to talk about.
I doubt they'll learn it on CNN.
He said he doesn't want to talk about. He won't talk about what happened in intelligence briefings. But
right, he shouldn't. It's called
right.
an intelligence briefing. Anderson, are you comfortable that?
But if this didn't happen in an intelligence briefing, then you can talk about it. If this wasn't part of the brief, if this wasn't part of, I'm sorry to talk over you.
Were your four journalists in the intelligence briefing? Were the officials who leaked to the media in the intelligence briefing? No.
So on the one hand,
there were
right,
four
but Kellyanne,
intelligence officials and the briefer.
What you're saying doesn't make sense. On the one hand, you're saying our reporting is inaccurate. On the other hand, you're saying you don't know if it was in the intelligence briefing, and you can't say even if you did know, right?
I can tell you that credible news reports today say that it was not in there.
An NBC News report based on one source. An NBC News report based on one source.
And what is yours based on?
Multiple sources, and the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal as well say it.
No, excuse me. You know who the person who put this collection of raw material is, right?
We're not reporting that raw material. We're not reporting that this person. We're not basing our reporting on what this person did. Of course, it was opposition research. CNN is not BuzzFeed. I just wish you guys would acknowledge and just be straightforward. I get why politically it makes sense for you to link CNN with what BuzzFeed did, but as Jake Tapper has repeatedly said on the air, he doesn't approve. He's one of the reporters on this. He certainly doesn't approve of what BuzzFeed did. I certainly would not have dumped all this unsubstantiated allegations. I think it's unfair.
But now that it's out there, CNN's all too happy to refer to it, aren't you?
We're not reporting it. No, we've mentioned none of it on the air. We have not talked about any details on the air.
It's on your website. But anyway, it's on CNN.com. But here's the thing, now it'll get lots of clicks. Here's the thing.
I encourage people to go online
CNN and BuzzFeed have a lot in common. You both were absolutely convinced and told all of your viewers that Hillary Clinton was going to win this election. That's
you
why.
Can't stick to what, you can't stick to what we're talking about now?
Oh, okay. No. This is what we're talking about because the excitement, the fury about hacking reached a fever pitch after the election results were neither what was expected or desired by CNN, President Obama, Hillary Clinton, and the whole crew. Okay, if cybersecurity was such a big priority to this administration and the Democratic Party and its apologists in the media, then why didn't we do more about it over the last 8 years? Why, when 21 million personnel files were hacked of innocent Americans through the Office of Personnel Management by China, President Obama basically gave them a slap on the wrist. Now we're all
I know you like to pivot. I get it. And I want you to have the...
That's actually real news. That actually happened.
Okay.
That's not unsourced, unnamed.
I guess what you still have not answered.
Allegations.
I guess what you still haven't answered, though, is what isn't inaccurate in our reporting. Because you said you weren't in the briefing. You don't know if what we're reporting is true or not. You weren't in the briefing, and I guess you haven't heard anything about what was in the briefing from anybody who was there. Can you deny that we reported, not what BuzzFeed, all that unsubstantiated stuff, which we're not reporting, what we reported, how can you say it's not true?
I think if you link to something on your website, you're reporting it.
Okay, again, you're not
giving
answering
it
the question.
credibility.
How
You're
can you
actually
say
giving
it's
it
not true?
No, hold on. You can't say you're not reporting it if it's on your website, if it's on CNN.com.
You can't answer this question. What is inaccurate about our reporting?
Here's the answer. Here's the answer. If the 4 intelligence officials that gave the top secret briefing last week that some fools think they should leak to the media when it's a top secret intelligence briefing for a reason so that we're all protected, everybody, then why, according to your own report last night, report used as a loose word here, why did they not tell the president-elect about it? Because your own reporting says that there's no confirmation that they briefed him orally. If it was so darn
I appreciate you acknowledging that.
And it's worthy, well, hold on. If it's worthy of a CNN screaming headline that became this huge fake news story, then why did they not brief him? They had an opportunity. They were here in Trump Tower. Why didn't they tell him if it was so important? You know what it's important to? It's important to politics,
we don't
not
have
intelligence. I have the answer.
We report on what we know and what
intelligence.
we report on what our sources are telling us and what our sources said. We could not get any confirmation of whether or not this was verbally discussed, and we acknowledge that.
And why run with it? Why release it first and report it sometime in the future?
If it's significant enough to be in the briefing documents, then it seems significant. The fact that whether it's not true, for whatever the reason, they decided to have it be in the briefing documents, that is news. If it's significant enough to be in the briefing documents, then it seems significant. The fact that whether it's not true, for whatever the reason, they decided to have it be in the briefing documents, that is news, no?
And what if it's not in the briefing documents, Anderson? What will CNN do?
Well, if our report is wrong, we'll acknowledge that.
Really? Well, heads roll because they didn't after the election when all the polling was wrong,
me right
all
now?
the pundits
But
were wrong,
you've yet to say
all the chyrons were wrong.
You can't say
all the consultants were wrong.
You can't say
and all the anchors were wrong.
You're talking about polling during the election, which all that data.
I'm asking. I just don't think that you'll clean house if the report is wrong. If there wasn't a 2-page appendix, because you haven't cleaned house yet.
What you think
have.
and what is true are not necessarily the same thing. So I'm trying to figure out from you what you can say about what is true and what is not, and you cannot take issue with any specific that we have reported. I've yet to hear you say specifically that is not true.
It's not true.
It's not true that those were in the briefing documents. It's not true that It's not true that that was in any of the briefing documents. You're saying that categorically.
It's true that you have no evidence of it other than unnamed sources who don't have the briefing documents. That's what's true, because they would not have access to the briefing documents.
You don't know who the sources are, but we have multiple sources. And again, this is something also that the New York Times.
Tell them to come forward. Tell them they can have this chair anytime. Tell them to come forward. Why are they unnamed?
This is a red herring.
Who are they protecting except Democrat
It's like you've got bright.
No,
you're trying to distract from my question, which is you do not have the information whether it's true or not.
You can use words like pivot, distract, red herring all you want. The fact is that the media have a 16% approval rating for a reason. It's been earned. And it's crap like this that really undergirds why Donald Trump won. In fact, you're doing him a favor again. This was an anti-elitist election. It was rejection of everybody who thinks they know better than people.
I'm just trying to get a sense of what you...
This report is very concerning.
You say it's not true, but you can't say whether it's true or not. I get the anger over the BuzzFeed stuff. I thought that was, when I read that, it's totally unsubstantiated. We're not reporting that. I guess I don't understand. I think I do understand, because I think it's politics for you to try to link all the reporters together. But it seems just unfair and, frankly, disingenuous.
No, actually, very few people came to CNN's defense today. I'm sure you're aware of that.
Well, actually, Shepard Smith on Fox did, which I thought was interesting and actually pretty courageous.
That's a cherry, yeah. Right. Well, anybody else on Fox or anybody else, and I don't see people rushing to CNN's defense. I saw a lot of pushback, frankly.
Well, I haven't talked to Sean Hannity today. I'm sure you guys have a couple times. But
well, you can pick on Fox all you want, but I've been on other networks today. Sean Spicer has. The president-elect gave a press conference in front of over 400 journalists, credentialed journalists, who wanted to cover this, and they're not out there saying, linking to CNN's report, and there's a reason for that, because it has unnamed, unsourced folks, and you can. So if you say, let me ask you a question, because you're a journalist and I'm not.
Right. Well, I should point out the New York Times, Wall Street Journal actually matched what our reporting was.
If you say that CNN is not reporting on something, but it's on your website, does that mean CNN's not reporting on it? Because I think they are. The fact that it's not on your show doesn't mean. Okay, the BuzzFeed report, the BuzzFeed story is not linked on your website. It's not mentioned in
I don't know.
Story?
I don't know all of what's on the digital program. I'm told it's not, but I don't believe that it is. I find it weird that CNN, and frankly, if CNN linked to the BuzzFeed stuff, that seems to me inappropriate. And if CNN does that, I would not support that. But As far as I know, that is not the case. I'm certainly going to check out our website, and I urge people to go to our websites right now and check it out for themselves.
Anderson, do you think that BuzzFeed or anybody else, after months of deciding against publishing specious, scurrilous, unverified, uncorroborated junk in a Democratic opposition research document, do you think they would have released it last night had CNN not preceded it with its own report? I doubt it.
You know what?
There
The
was a
last time I read
here.
BuzzFeed, I saw a headline that said like 10 top sex toys that was going to improve your sex life. I don't read BuzzFeed.
Okay, now you're insulting BuzzFeed.
No, I'm just not interested. I don't read BuzzFeed, so I'm not going to speak for them or defend them. I don't think they should have published unsubstantiated allegations against the president-elect of the United States. I think that's inappropriate.
But maybe
personally.
they would not have. Maybe they would not have had the imprimatur of CNN, the vaunted name of CNN, gone first. You went first.
So your
They went
problem
second.
is that we reported something based on multiple sources that's then corroborated also by the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal and others.
No, not about the 2 pages. It's also been pushed back by NBC News and others tonight.
NBC
and you know
News
that.
based
words,
on one source, and what they said is that it wasn't verbally presented, and we never said it was.
Anderson, do you think it should have been, though? I mean, if it's worthy
I
of
don't
this
know.
conversation
I don't
of
want
a
to.
CNN
I can't
headline,
speak.
do you think it should have been verbally presented?
I can't speak.
No, I'm asking you just as a smart person who loves America.
I'm not going to speak for the intelligence officials on what they chose to brief or not brief.
Okay, but then it's not important, right? Because they were in the room, they could have told
I have no
him.
idea.
Why not
That's
brief?
your judgment. I have no idea. We
No,
stand by
that's-
our reporting, which was we don't know whether it was actually verbally briefed. We don't have reporting on that. All we have, based on multiple sources, which CNN stands by 100%, was that this was in the material, not the 35-page salacious, unsubstantiated document that BuzzFeed later put out, but some sort of a summary about it. That's what our reporting was.
So just so we're clear, so that we have good relations with the press here in the Trump White House, if it turns out that the 2 pages are not true, do not exist somehow, then CNN will take corrective measures about that, because you released first and you'll report later in this instance.
I certainly think they should. I think everybody in this business who stands by their reporting, if they do it wrong, if they get it wrong, they should acknowledge that right away and
I think
admit their mistakes.
Sean
and I think
Spicer,
that's important.
The point that Sean Spicer and the president-elect were trying to make today is very simple. It's that many outlets refuse to go where CNN went, and separately.
No, many outlets
went.
refused to publish a 35-page unsubstantiated document, which is what CNN also did.
They've also refused to say that CNN had this report, quote unquote, I'm using the term liberally, had this report that there was a 2-page appendix that somehow said something that was so important to the security of our nation that nobody bothered to brief the president-elect and perhaps even President Obama the day
not
before.
everybody has the same sourcing, obviously. You know that. Some people have better sourcing than others, and CNN is standing by their reporting. But
I'll tell you, everyone has unnamed sourcing, though.
Okay.
Unnamed sourcing.
My only point.
This is political.
Look, first of all, I respect you coming on and talking about this, but my only point that I just want to get across to you is I just don't understand. I think it's unfair to conflate the two, and whatever the reasons you all are doing that, I'm not sure. I have ideas, but I just don't think that's professional, because it's just not true.
But you should take that up with other journalists, because those who mentioned this issue at all today mentioned both CNN and BuzzFeed together, in print, on Twitter, on Facebook,
right. Well,
and
those
certainly
people, anybody who conflated it as the same reporting, that's inaccurate reporting, just as what Sean Spicer said is inaccurate.
Those who mentioned this issue at all today mentioned both CNN and BuzzFeed together, in print, on Twitter, on Facebook,
right. Well,
and
those
certainly
people, anybody who conflated it as the same reporting, that's inaccurate reporting, just as what Sean Spicer said is inaccurate.
It wasn't conflated as the same reporting, Anderson. It was conflated as the same series of events that have led to this conversation. But look, the fact is that Donald Trump last week, the president-elect, after he received his intelligence briefing, he came out with a statement. Your viewers, I hope, have seen it. I'm sure they have. I commend them to read it again and again, because he says some things very clearly about who has attempted to hack us, and they continue to attempt. They did successfully hack the DNC, and that he, the president-elect, moving forward, wants to meet with his own security and intelligence team and ask them for a plan within the next 90 days of taking office, Anderson, to come up with a plan that will improve cybersecurity enhancements, because it doesn't seem like it was a priority until after people didn't like the election results. And the idea that innocent people had their names dragged through the mud last night it should be disconcerting to everyone. These folks who have never been in Prague, people we don't even know, people
we didn't
aren't
report
associated
that.
with the campaign.
Right.
Well, you got the party started. A lot of your journalists today feel that way because they were at the press conference and we hear from them. So I just want to give you a friendly piece of advice. Many people feel that CNN went first and BuzzFeed went second, and that with the imprimatur of CNN going first and posting this and then making it a huge centerpiece of TV coverage, that then it allowed a news outlet to go ahead and publish the rest of the story, quote unquote, and it's fake news, as Donald Trump said last night, and I also agree with him, it's a political witch hunt.
So if CNN reports something and people on Twitter shady organizations or BuzzFeed or reputable organizations start then reporting other things, you cannot hold CNN responsible for what other people are doing. They're responsible for what they do. We stand by our reporting 100%. And I guess, I think we both made our points, but I really do appreciate.
I can hold CNN accountable for having the screaming headline that he was briefed on something if he wasn't. That's what it says. It says intelligence chiefs presented Trump with information that Russia efforts to compromise him.
Well, it doesn't
Where
say he
is
was
that
briefed.
evidence?
It says that it was presented with information, that there was information in there, in the documents.
In a footnote?
No,
or sliding it under
you
a
said
gum
briefed.
wrapper?
That's not what the headline just said. So I'm just.
Yeah, well, the implications and the chyrons and the consultants and the people who have been anti-Trump since the beginning and continue to be as he becomes president. Look, Anderson, I think the more important conversation, maybe it's for another time, but let's start it tonight briefly. The more important conversation is we're at a very important inflection point about journalism. What are the standards here? How are we going to cover the new president of the United States? Because I took a little peek at what the headlines about President-elect Obama were 8 years ago. Whew, talk about the world's biggest disconnect. It was basically how he'll rule with excellence. Should President-elect Obama go to Oslo now and pick up his Nobel Peace Prize, or should he wait until after he's sworn in? We get nothing like that. We get no forbearance. We get nothing. We get no respect. We get no
actually
deference.
covered
This
Donald
man is
Trump's
president of the United
allegations
States.
against Donald Trump, against President Obama, quite frequently, and interviewed actually Donald Trump about his allegations, completely unproven and fake, against President Obama.
I don't know what that has to do with this. I'm just merely saying 8 years ago.
You're talking about old headlines about President Obama. We ran with that story a lot.
At this time, before he was president-elect, it was basically what will they wear to the inauguration and how historic, in other words, what will his inaugural address be? Why don't we have that conversation? I'm happy to talk to you about that, but we can't. When CNN and BuzzFeed and others are trying to release information sequentially on the same night and it all gets picked up and gets looped together, and you know that. I was on several shows this morning. Our incoming Chief of Staff, Reince Priebus, was. We had a press conference today with the President-elect. Right. And it all gets
I understand
together.
other people.
You may not like it.
I understand other people loop things together, but we are not discussing the details of what BuzzFeed dumped onto the internet. That's not. You haven't heard that on
CNN did today, and I guarantee you they will tonight. Probably on a show that runs after yours. They probably
have not
will
heard. We have
those.
been very conscientious in not discussing the details, the completely unsubstantiated and increasingly false, apparently, details of what was being reported by BuzzFeed, or what was not even being reported, just being dumped onto the internet by BuzzFeed. And we're not going to do it tonight, certainly not on my program. But we went.
And it's all fake news. And let me just say, Anderson,
it's not all
I really
fake
think
news.
that
that's just disingenuous.
In that report, yes, it's all fake news. And people keep using the word dossier, like it's using some fancy French word is going to imbue it with credibility. It's an internet report. It is not an intelligence report. It's a collection of stuff that came from political operatives.
Yes, I agree.
Who wanted a different candidate to win.
We agree on this.
But Anderson, look, if a business doesn't do well some year, they usually clean house. They usually get rid of the people who embarrassed them, who didn't meet their projection goals, who said things that just weren't true and made no sense. And I just don't see that at CNN and other places. How are we going to move forward and have a great relationship with major news organizations if everything just sounds and looks and seems the same. The chyrons, the
Right,
pundits,
but to be honest,
the
my job
anchors,
is not to have a great
the
relationship
website.
with you. My job, I mean, I like you personally, my job, and I respect you, and I respect anybody who is in the public arena and putting themselves out there and is a public servant, as you all are. And I respect the president-elect enormously for all he's done and all I hope he's going to do. But the job of the press is not to be buddies and hang out socially
How about
with
be
everybody.
fair?
I agree.
Well,
Be
well,
fair
gosh,
and
that
be
certainly
accurate.
has been the case for President Obama. He's been
I've never been to the
socially-
White
you guys
House
have been
to
I
hang
know,
out
but
socially.
a lot of folks have. A
Maybe-
lot of folks
listen,
have.
I agree.
But
People,
that
look,
aside,
I don't go to the White House Correspondent Dinner. I went once. I'm like, I'm never going again. I don't want to hang out socially with these people. That's not my job. But I mean, look, this is a larger conversation. I'm happy to have it to you because I do.
Well, it is. And Anderson, just briefly, you know, that's right. But Mike Pence put it best today, our Vice President-elect. He said, in introducing our President-elect Donald Trump, he said that we all support a fair and free press. But with freedom comes responsibility. And he's absolutely right. And I think people should not do this rush to judgment, have conclusions in search of evidence that then
well, listen,
really
we agree with
confuse
that.
the viewers and the readers.
I
Okay,
totally
good.
agree. I
Thank
totally
you.
agree with that. We're on the same page on that. And Kellyanne Conway, as always,
We
I
agree.
appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Well, throughout the interview, you heard Kellyanne Conway repeatedly claim that CNN linked to the BuzzFeed story that the Trump team and many others are taking exception with, the BuzzFeed story, which we have not reported the details on. You also heard me say repeatedly that that is simply not true. About 20 minutes after that interview, before we went on air, Kellyanne Conway tweeted this screenshot of our reporting and what she claims is a link to BuzzFeed in that article. Now, just as a matter of fact, because facts do actually matter, it is not a link to BuzzFeed. It links to a story by CNN's Dylan Byers about the controversy. And his piece, which I've read, does not link to BuzzFeed, nor does it lay out the unverified, unsubstantiated allegations that the Trump people rightly are objecting to. It does mention Trump attorney Michael Cohen. That's only because Michael Cohen publicly denied what BuzzFeed's, his mention in the BuzzFeed, I don't even want to call it reporting, the document dump. There is no link to BuzzFeed, full stop, hasn't been on CNN.